Hey there everybody, it's Maggie from Personal Euphoria with today's plank story. So it is either the plank story you've been waiting for if you missed the forest fire story from my classes this week, or you're like, I wish Maggie would stop talking about that damn forest fire. But it's been on my mind all week. The week has seemed very uneventful since Saturday. All right, it's a long story, so that doesn't mean you can't do plank, right? You could time out 30 seconds or 90 seconds, but then you probably want to change it up. You could do some nice spinal rotation, or you could do some squats, since this is a hiking story, and get your quads in gear as if you're getting ready for a hike. But we'll get the clock on, and we'll start our story now. Here we go. So on Saturday, Matt and I were up in New Hampshire, and we went to go for a hike. And now, as hikes go, I would put this in the easy category. But what that means is it was about 1,600 feet of elevation, 5 miles. It wasn't a 4,000 footer. To me, it was like a great hike to break back into hiking season. But I also was a little bit cocky. I was like, oh, this loop has like no offshoots. There's nowhere to get lost. Like, I was just thinking it was a pretty easy, pretty basic hike. So what's atypical for me is I made a choice not to bring a map because I was like, we're not going to get lost. And I normally text someone where we're going to be, and I had texted no one. So we start hiking, and it's 85 degrees, and the leaves haven't fully filled out the trees. So we're in sun more than I expected, which is fine. You know, I had my sunscreen. But we're on this hike, and it's pretty uneventful. And then we take a break, and Matt kind of looks into the trees, and he's like, is that mist or fog rolling in? And it's this gorgeous sunny day with white fluffy clouds. And I'm like, no way. There's no fog coming in right now. And we're both kind of looking at it because it's notable. And he's like, oh, it's really eerie, isn't it? And I was like, oh yeah. I mean, whatever that is, it looks like what you'd see in a Stephen King movie, and then it would kill you. And then we realized, like, it's moving seemingly like along the trail we've just come from. And I say, oh, it's smoke. It must be the train. But we think we might have heard the train, and we don't think this is a steam train, and it's a lot of smoke. And if I'm honest, right then, I think we both were pretty aware we were caught in a forest fire. But it turns out when you have that thought, your next thought is denial. Like, you just don't want that to be the case. Plus, it's New Hampshire, so who's thinking forest fire? So we decide to continue hiking up, and we get to this outlook and vista on a big rock where we can see down across the whole valley where we're parked, and it's like nothing but smoke. It's just a line of smoke. So forest fire is pretty well confirmed, but one of us still says out loud, you think it could be a big car fire? But we kind of know it's not, and we realize we don't think we can get out the way we came back in. And it does appear that the trail continues away from the fire, but I point out it looks like it's going to wrap around, and that the trailhead from this side also looks like it's on fire, and that there's potentially no way out. But we have no signal. So we bushwhack, which means going off trail, just a little ways. I mean, this whole next piece takes about 10 minutes to get up and down. And we go up as high as we can to see if we get signal. And we try to text our neighbor in New Hampshire, my brother, my sister, and my friend Julie. And they basically get this text, like, we're on this trail, there's a forest fire, we're trying to get out, call 911, don't have much signal. And I add to mine, like, don't worry, Mom and Dad. Matt's text was much more clear. Mine was a little more sloppy and confusing than that, but like, that was the gist of the message. And then we come back down. When we get back to the rock cliff, there's like ash falling on us. The smoke has changed from like white to a yellow, darker color, and the trees are on fire. You can now actually see fire. And it's funny because, again, we knew there was a forest fire, but until this moment, you could live in some level of denial. But now it's like, I just feel this like adrenaline rush. Like, I go flush, my whole body goes flush. This nervousness of like, we've got to get out of here. And so we decide our only option is to try the way that clearly goes away from the fire. We've seen the smoke wrapping around the way we came, so we know we can't go that way. And about 1.5 miles away, there's a waterfall. And if we can get to that, we can use it as a barrier. But I'm a little nervous because I presume, you know, all you hear, you think forest fire, you think out west, and they go so fast. And I'm afraid that, like, if this fire moves so fast and it cuts off our path to the waterfall, that we won't be able to outrun it uphill. But again, it's our only choice, and we decide to move away from it. And if the wind changes, we don't want to be up here where the smoke's going to be in our face, because there's a lot of smoke. So we start our hike, and now we're like trying to hustle, and I'm dying, I'm panting, I'm winded, and Matt says to me, "You would think a fire would put a little more fire under your butt." And I go, "I'm trying." I said, "Matt, I've got to slow down. I'm going to twist an ankle. This is foolish. Like, we've got to be smart here." So we slow down, and then you would have no idea there was a fire going on. It was like the forest there seemed fine. And we come across these two solo female hikers who randomly were together at this point. And we say, "Do you know there's a forest fire?" And they say, "Oh, is that what that smoke was?" One said, "I was kind of hoping maybe they were doing a controlled burn." And we say, "There is definitely a forest fire." But they're very calm. And I'm struck by that, because I'm not calm. I am like intense. At no point did I really think I was going to die. I was like, I'm pretty sure I survived this. But my decisions felt very important, and I knew if the weather changed, my situation could change suddenly. So I felt intensely focused and nervous. And then we see this other couple, and they're doing the loop in reverse. So they've just come from the entryway I think we're headed to that I think is on fire. And we say, "Was there a forest fire when you came in?" And they're like, "No, what are you talking about?" And we're like, "Well, there's a forest fire behind us. You shouldn't keep going." And they're like, "Oh, we'll go to this certain point and we'll see how far we can get." And I say to Matt, like, "Did I not express the severity of the situation to those people?" And he's like, "I mean, you gave them all the facts." So we keep going, and we come across another couple, and we're like, "You guys got in, so there's no forest fire at the entry?" And they're like, "No." They're like, "Is that why we smell smoke?" And we're like, "Yes, there's a forest fire behind us. You should not keep going." And they turn around right away. And so we're walking out kind of with them, and there's a little cutoff to get to the waterfall versus the exit. And they're like, "You really don't want to miss the waterfall. Like, it's beautiful." And I'm a little torn, because I have this thought of like, all I've wanted to do is get out of these woods, and we're headed to the exit, which according to this couple and the last couple is not currently on fire like I thought from the top. So why would we stop? Like, why does no one care the forest is on fire? We want to get out. On the other hand, Matt and I, for a mile and a half, our goal has been like, get to the waterfall. That's how we'll get out and get on the other side of this fire. So we detour to the waterfall, and at that point I'm like, all right, this is a big gap. We could get it, but we can get on the other side of it no matter what is happening. Because in my head, I'm still pretty convinced I saw fire at that trailhead. Like, I'm struggling to believe how these people got in here. And so I feel like we'll get to the other side, we'll be okay. And we come out of the waterfall, and now we're heading to the trailhead. And there's a female firefighter, and it's 85 degrees again, and she's in all her gear, dripping sweat. And she asks us, have you seen anyone else on the trail? And we say, oh, there's 2 women still at the waterfall. And this couple continued on, and she is just exasperated. She's just like, oh. And then she says, I'm so sorry. Thank you for telling me. And she goes on to get them. And so it's funny because when they went ahead, I was like, to each his own. I mean, if they want to put themselves in danger, that's up to them. But at this point, I thought, oh, this is why that choice isn't fair. This person has to go. She's not going to need to rescue you. We're all going to be okay. But like, she has to go out and make sure you're okay. She tells us that we can get out, but to the right of the trailhead is on fire. And so it turns out it was really a timing issue. I do think we saw the trailhead on fire, and those people clearly started their hike before that had happened. She's like, but just stay to the left, you'll get out. And then we see another firefighter, and he's like, we contained the fire at the trailhead, you'll be fine, but fires are popping up. He's like, so if you see smoke, just get yourselves out of here. To which I'm like, I've been trying to get out for 2 miles. And then we see a third firefighter who turns out is a hotshot, which I didn't even know existed, but there are these crews of 20 people crews of firefighters specially trained in land management and forest fires. And he's like, listen, we had eyes on the trailhead, but we don't. I don't want to send you down to a fire, so let's wait here. We're going to all kind of hang here because more hikers are coming now. I want to find out that that's safe. He's like, we're going to get out of here. He's like, well, either the trailhead is safe or we're going to go back to the waterfall and use it as a barrier. He's like, but I just had to put out a small fire here. And he's got like a giant leaf blower on, or that's what it looks like anyway, like that blows air on the fires. And he seems exhausted, but really like thoughtful, kind. Every one of these firemen and women were like, do you need water? And they were checking on us. About 10 minutes later, he gets radioed that it's all clear. And so like a bunch of us are hiking down together now. But when you got to the trailhead, what contained meant is not out. It just wasn't ablaze. The trees were all burned. Some had fallen over. The ground was black, smoking everywhere. Pockets were on fire. It was like the in The Princess Bride, the fire pits of The Princess Bride a little bit. So we got out, and then there's just a ton of fire crew from local towns and these hot shots. And I said to Matt, well, now that we're out alive, that was a great hike and a great story. But then I went on to Google, like, what did we do right? What did we do wrong? What are you supposed to do in a forest fire? And for the most part, we did the right thing. You want to get away from the fire. You want to try to stay away from the smoke too, because that can obviously kill you. You want to get a barrier, either a large rock or a body of water, ideally. Even the trail can clearly work as a barrier. You want to try to signal someone and get the word out. We had tried to call 911, but our signal was never strong enough for that, but our family was able to do that for us. And you don't want to go higher. So that was our only risky thing, is our going higher, because fire spreads so much quicker when it's going uphill, that you want to get equal to or lower than the fire unless you can get over the ridge, which we were going up. We could have gone over the ridge. And then if you need to, if you can get on the other side of the fire, it's called getting on the black. You can walk on that previously burnt part. Being careful where you step, because clearly like parts of it will still be on fire, but I guess it's very unlikely for that to re-catch. So you want to get onto the other side of the fire. But it was a small fire. Like when you picture that fire burning that we always hear about out west, this was much smaller, but still unbelievable. And it's burned about 100 acres. As of yesterday, it was still burning. They had it like 75% contained. But, it was fascinating. And I'm still baffled by how calm everyone else was. And all I can imagine is, like, when you see actual flames, it makes a difference. But we were okay thanks to a great fire crew. Well, that is, my watch doesn't even go that far. My watch stopped at 12 minutes. So this is a very long plank story. I hope you stopped doing squats if you started them. I hope you have a wonderful day and keep moving. Hi, Jane.